welcome to another episode of Mine Planning Matters, a podcast where we talk about where the industry gets it both right and wrong when it comes to mine planning and mining engineering. This podcast is not just for mine planners, it's for everyone who has anything to do with mine plans, from those who create them, to those who execute them, and all the way up to those who endorse or sign off on them. My name is Mark Bowater, Director and Founder of Australian mining consultancy Insignia Mining, and I speak from experience, having been involved in mine planning for over 30 years. Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mine Planning Matters. Now in this episode, I want to talk about the cadence of mine plans. So what mine plans you should produce and how often you should produce them. I've visited a few mine sites recently and I've noticed that I think they have the mine planning cadence wrong in terms of my opinion, at least, of how it should work. And so for me, when I think about mine planning cadence, it really comes back to what are the purpose of each of these plans? Why do we even do them in the first place? And then that for me then drives how often we should do them, and how long, the life of the plan. And so let's start at the short term end, the execution end. You need a plan to give your operations team that gives them some direction of what it is that they're doing in the very short term. And so I think of that as the execution plan. And, that should be like the next week or two maybe, and it's done by day or by shift. And it's based on very short-term recent historical production rates, the rates that they are in the digs sort of, right now. And so that's the execution plan. You should be doing that every week, and it should last for a week or two. So let's call it a rolling weekly plan. Now then I think the next plan from there that you need a plan that's something like about 12 to 16 weeks long. It really depends on how things work at your mine site. But it's the plan that is giving you some idea of what decisions you have to make, what equipment you have to move, what the priorities are in terms of, if we don't get this done, then this won't happen. And so it's really about things just continuing along nicely and not falling over. And so that's a 12-week plan. And for me, I actually sort of think of that as like a rolling monthly plan. You should be just updating that every month. So every month you should be rerunning it, adding another month on the end. I don't think that you need to be doing this one weekly. But I think, as I've said before in a number of episodes, I think for me this is probably one of the fundamental plans because it really sets you up for success in that execution plan. Now, once you get beyond sort of the 12 to 16 weeks, the next plan from there, really, I actually think it's a little bit of an artificial type plan because I think it's just driven by companies and the fact that we work on a financial year basis, and companies want to produce budgets, they want to give market guidance and those sorts of things. And so although I actually don't think it's necessarily needed to run a mine effectively, the next plan from there is your budget. It's your annual budget. It's a 1-year plan or a 2-year plan. And that drives a whole lot of things around, forecasting of sort of quantities and revenue in and all those sorts of things. And so I tend to think of that as it's the next 12 to 24 months. And you would be reforecasting that like once a quarter. So let's call it a rolling annual plan that every 3 months you would rerun a schedule that's something like 12 to 24 months out. I think 24 months is a bit extreme, but certainly at least 12, for example. And then back into plans that actually you need to sort of run a mine. I think the next one then is it's about a 3 to 5 year horizon. It really depends on how long things take in the jurisdiction of where you are mining, because this is the plan that initiates studies and those other sorts of things that have to happen when, for example, you want to open up a new pit and, you've got to put in new roads, or you've got to maybe divert, a creek, or you've got to divert power lines, or you need approvals from the government, you need to change your mining lease, or a large range of things. There are a large range of things that tend to have about that 3 to 5 year time horizon. I've certainly noticed in Australia that time horizon is getting longer. If I went back 10 or 20 years, I would say, for example, the 3-year plan was plenty of time, 3 years to get those sorts of things organised. But I think it's probably more like 5 these days. And in some places with long lead times with government decisions, and, maybe it's 7 sort of, but you need a plan that's just driven by where you are, and it's around those, facilitating those longer term decisions and studies and actions that need to happen. Then from there, the last one for me is the life of mine plan. And if you have a really long life mine, then it doesn't necessarily need to be a life of mine. It's maybe just 15 to 20 years or something like that. But, I do think it's important to know those longer term decisions in terms of how long is the mine going to last. What does the quality or grade of the ore look like over time, and does it change? And when do we need to think about sort of opening up new mining areas, and all those sorts of things. And so I think that the last one in the series is a life of mine plan.
Thanks for listening to Mine Planning Matters and my thoughts on mine planning. This podcast is for the benefit of the mining industry, and that's you. So I'd love to hear from you through the comments section, and please feel free to let me know any topics you'd like discussed in future episodes. You'll find much more content at our Insignia Mining website, and if you find any of our content valuable, please let your mining colleagues know so they can benefit as well.